den narriken, talk over good, talk over good, talk over good, talk over good.
I've been involved in the project since its inception, really.
Very beginning.
We've been involved in it. I can't remember how I became involved, but I have been involved in it since the start, which is really special. Again, you know, you don't always get to see a project right the way through to production. So we had a few developments and we had some sharings, which is lovely, and really lucky to have Ollie Searle as well from the start. He doing some delicious little arrangements for our vocals.
And we didn't know what it was back then?
We didn't know what it was.
I mean, really, day one, it was like, here's some songs, here's some things we put together. I've taken it from the old James McPherson writing. It was in Gaelic, and we were trying stuff out, and we just tried to marry text and music together a wee bit. And we had a couple of showings, like you said. It was really helpful, actually. We did a lot of development on the music. At one point, we were just focusing on music, and it did make me think, right, okay, when I go away, how am I going to try and write all this together? And
I think, again, that was one of the challenges, wasn't it? How the music kind of integrated with the performance piece itself, and how to make that work rather than just having three people sitting on stools and singing. It was a challenge, but it's great to see how things have developed and changed, but also the things that have stayed with the songs and the music.
The core of it, right? The kind of core ideas kind of lasted.
This was slightly different for me because as an actor, obviously, you read the script and you look at the character and you try and find as many clues from that script as you can. But because it was mainly a singer in this show, we couldn't really do any prep because we've got three vocals doing three different harmonies, which we didn't know at the time what harmony was going to be done. So it was quite hard to prep for it, I would say. And also it's not until it's in the room and it's on its feet that you know what works where. And also just even like, because the volume in small spaces and things like that, you can't really prep for that until you're in the space itself. Yeah.
I think it was a different process, wasn't it? Because the script was there on one page, and then the songs were kind of separate, and they were being written separately. And so the challenge in the room, it was like devising. It was like really starting from scratch. How do we bring these two together? And you're right. It was only when you're on your feet and doing it that you can feel. It's a feeling, wasn't it? It was instinct. This doesn't feel right, or it should be more like this. That wasn't anything to do with what's in the script. That's just to do with being in the room and the relationship with each other and the relationship you had with the other singers and just what felt right. Is that the right tone? Is that the right story? Is that the right style? Is that the right pace? Do you know all those things? It had to be an instinctive thing rather than something coming from the script, I think.
We spent a lot of time asking questions.
Yep.
Like you do in the play.
Yep.
Who are these people? What does Gaelic mean? We had a whole session almost like, I remember Lou asking me, what does Gaelic mean to you? Which is quite a large question to ask in a room. But, you know, you have to get underneath the skin of these things and try and get to completely understand, especially when you don't have a language, to understand what it is you're trying to make the audience understand.
Yeah, that's true.
Through a language you don't have.
But you would have brought some of your acting experience to it, right?
So.
So being an experienced actor and singer, do you know, you're obviously bringing that to the singing.
Absolutely.
And you did look for a character, right? Or you would have thought, who am I at this point?
Absolutely, yeah. You have to, because otherwise you just become like a cardboard cutout who's opening their mouth and making some noise. Nobody wants that. You do have to create something in your own head, like who you are. And we were all different people. We were all singing, you know, different versions and different harmonies at different times. So yeah, it's really interesting, again, as a performer who's not performing, because that was very much the thing that Lou was saying, you know, I don't want you to act, but I want you to kind of channel certain vibes. And that changed because, you know, at certain points we had more of a set than that ended up being there, and how we physically moved that and who we were as part of the set.
And I think that there was the main challenge was how much are you guys involved and how much are you separate? So sometimes Lou would say, okay, actually stand at the back, let's just see what it looks like. Oh no, this time move the set, see what it looks like. So there was lots of experimenting around that, about how involved or how not involved, were you responsible for moving and changing the set, or am I responsible for it and you're over there, you know? And it was really about the power that you had in the space, and that's something that Lou was very determined to give you more power and not just be the cardboard cutout at the back, because there was plenty of cardboard cutouts in this production. I don't know if we needed another one. Yeah, again, I think characters, it's quite hard, isn't it, to talk about it in that sense, because it was all a version of myself in some way, and because it was direct audience address, because it was spoken word. And I think, again, through rehearsals, that's something Lou was maybe trying to get us to think about, was the storytelling aspect, was, well, who are you at this point, and what kind of character can you maybe portray at this point, or what are the feelings anyway. So that was different for me, because it's not normally something that I do with my work. But yes, there was a historical layer, so I suppose I'm kind of in storyteller mode. But then in the modern layer, I suppose Lou was trying to really get me to portray this character, portray this young person, this young Glaswegian. We were thinking about the granddad being over there, or talking to the granddad and envisioning the old house, or the path, or the gate, or James Macpherson, even in the historical story. Do you know, he's in London, what does that feel like? So it was really different for me to be thinking about those things, because normally what I do is direct address, and I talk to the audience, but having to think of character, or at least think of persona, or imagining space, or imagining who you're talking to, that was something quite tricky to get my head around. But I think the performance is richer for it, because I think she really wanted us to kind of be in those moments, which is to do with who that character is at that time.
Our characters, my character as a singer and performer in the show, it was more, I would say, a muse for Martin's characters. We were kind of your conscience, provoking you, comforting you. We were in the past and the present, and hopefully the future, in a Gaelic world, and we were very much the oral, I suppose, storyteller, the Shenachie. So when you first see us, we come in just around the time when you're talking about myths.
But there's not really any sense of like different characters, is there? So when I was writing it was mostly telling the story and having these songs in it. So I think during the rehearsal process, it was really up to Lou, who's the director, to kind of think about, well, who are these characters then, and how do we give them a bit more flesh on their bones, or how do we characterise them a wee bit more? And maybe you represented different things at different times, I think, and going through the layers of the story. So there was a modern story, there was a historical story, there was this mythological part of it as well. I think maybe we tried to be almost different characters in those, but you were always there, you were always present, so you kind of were kind of like an all-seeing kind of character as well, omnipresent, present throughout the whole thing, in the modern story and in the historical story as well. But what about the idea that you were just like representing past? That was something we didn't want to be the main thing, right? We didn't want Gaelic to just be in the past. We didn't want you to be ghosts. It was a tricky thing to try and get through in rehearsals, to try and work out what the relationship is between us.
It was really tricky. And I think, like I was saying, I hope that we were part of what the future is as well for Gaelic and Scottish history and identity. Yeah, we were different things at different times. That's quite hard. It's quite a challenge to put that on stage and to get that across to an audience as well, for them to understand who we are at that particular time, rather than just people singing Gaelic in the background.
And sometimes I could see you, and we were interacting a lot. Sometimes it was kind of being quite separate, wasn't it? Sometimes you were really supportive, sometimes we were talking to each other, and sometimes we weren't, but I always enjoyed having you on stage. I liked it when you came on at the beginning, because it was like, oh, here's some new people coming on, and here's a different energy, and now I can interact, and now we can maybe do something a bit more engaging between us on stage as well.
Yeah, it's that lovely thing of, although we were on the stage, we never actually connected like through language until the part you were speaking with the letter. And that felt really strong, and I don't know. I just that was a moment where I just felt we all kind of went.
Yep, together.
Yeah, it was really, really strong, and I really felt it when Martin was reading in Gaelic as well. I almost felt like that, kind of like, come on. It was really special, I think, that connection there, because although we were connecting in other ways, we never actually verbally
just
connected.
Spoke to each other. Yeah.
But also, it was really interesting at the moments as well when we were singing. I don't want to use the term underscoring, but when we were singing whilst you over certain parts of your text, and that overlay, underlay, how that affected your performance and how it affected ours.
Yeah, the quality of the whole thing. Yeah, it would change each time. And there was all this chat about the tone of what you were saying as well. So even when you were singing, again, it's about, is that the right thing? Is that the right kind of sound? Is that the right kind of tone? Is it more urgent? Is it more kind of reflective? Trying to find that balance between us.
That's also, I think, particularly important when probably a lot of the audience won't speak Gaelic as well. So you really have to make that, there needs to be clarity of tone in the singing there, doesn't there?
At one point, someone after one of the shows said to me, when you were talking, when the singers were singing, were they singing what you were saying? So sometimes people thought it was always a direct translation. And I don't think it was ever a direct translation. I don't think we ever did that. But it was really interesting. That was some people's viewpoint, was that, I'm saying in English what they're singing in Gaelic. Lou would ask me, and actually everyone at NTS would ask, why are there singers in it? Why do you have these singers? And I still can't really answer, right? And but it's just instinct. It's just like, no, I knew that this piece had to have music in it. I know the music has to be in Gaelic, and I know it has to be 3 female voices. So there are other characters in the play. So I think when you do a kind of storytelling show or a kind of solo show or a monologue type show, it isn't just one character, and I think that's what people forget about when it comes to monologue or monologue performance, is that you're still telling a story with a cast in it. There's always other people in it. So in this story, yes, there was a granddad, there was a mother, there's a tour guide in the museum, and then in the historical part, we're trying to create that historical world as well. So with James, there are other characters there who are trying to catch him out or trying to prove that he'd made this up. And then there's the kind of world at large of people who like the stories that he'd written. So there's kind of really specific characters and then quite general characters as well. So yes, in the storytelling, so you describe the granddad and you describe the mother, or you kind of put the words in the mouth of the tour guide or whatever it is that you're talking about. So they do become a different character. But at the same time, you have to kind of visualize that on stage in some way. Either I have to help the audience imagine who that is, what they look like, or for example, Lou might want the singers to kind of portray that in some way as well. So when I'm playing Samuel Johnson, who's one of the historical characters, I'm not playing him as a character, but I gave him a stance on the rock, for example. When we're talking about Grandad, it wasn't set so specifically. You weren't playing the Grandad, but when I was kind of talking over to you guys, you were almost embodying that person. So I think there's really specific ways to do it and then really subtle ways to do it. I think we did a bit of everything in that. And then there's this question of, is the audience a character? I don't know if the audience is a character, but the audience is certainly present the whole time, because me telling a historical story or me playing this version of myself, I'm telling it to the audience the whole time. So we are in conversation, we are connected, but that's a kind of storyteller audience kind of relationship. But I think that in telling the story and asking the questions and provoking some things or kind of painting a picture, you're always aware that you're doing that with the audience. You're trying to put these pictures in their mind, you're trying to ask these questions to them, you want some sort of response from them all the time. So maybe they're not a character, but they're almost like another performer maybe in the play, because they're very, very present and they're there all the time. There's also the lovely moment, which is very, very small, but we're kind of in a pub kind of scene, and I hand out a drink to all of them, and we have a wee cheers moment. It was actually nice. It's halfway through the show, and it was just nice to be like, hiya, we're still here, we're still going cheers, and I could have a bit of eye contact with them, because a lot of the time it was like, no, we're very separate, but there were some really specific moments of eye contact, of talking to each other, of really feeling like you're there. I mean, there was those moments of really looking at you towards the end of the play, like really taking time and watching each of you as you sang. So So the letter was kind of the culmination of that modern story, I think. It was a point where the character that I was playing, the version of myself, speaks in Gaelic for the first time. So I didn't speak in Gaelic at all throughout the piece. The language was quite separate, I suppose, up to that point. It was something from the past. It was something that came out of the book. It was something that I was trying to reach in some way. But over the course of the play and the development of it, we get to this point where my character wants to say something, do something in Gaelic. It's kind of interesting, isn't it? Because we're thinking of, well, how can we show that he's struggling with it and how can we show that he's trying? And it just came through rehearsals, really, which is like, well, there's these three people here who are all native Gaelic speakers, who all know what they're saying. Can we turn to them at that point? And I think that's, well, not that you weren't real up until that point, but we've very much all landed in the same place at that time. And all of a sudden, I honestly just feel like I was Martin speaking to Mary, Josie and Claire Francis, just saying, oh, hiya, how'd you say this? Or is that right? And it did feel quite authentic. It felt quite genuine to be able to do that rather than some sort of, I don't know, romanticised way or something. It's just like, oh no, I stumbled on a line. Here they are. They're here to help me. I suppose it was a hard moment for me to all of a sudden say this paragraph in Gaelic and talking about line learning. It took me a wee while to learn it. And of course, I'm with you three who are all native Gaelic speakers and, you know, very, very beautiful Gaelic speakers. And here's me trying to say it in a way. But just feeling that support from them. I mean, that was real. That was absolutely real. That wasn't fake at all. I always felt really beautiful every night doing that because I just felt, okay, here I am. I'm going to try and say it. This is the culmination of a story that I'm telling. And here's the support around it. It always felt like a really lovely moment.
It is a beautiful moment. And it always felt really beautiful on stage and it felt so real. And every night you did it, I was like, that's, I'm going to write a letter to my granddad in Gaelic. It was just, it was a beautiful moment. And I think it was an easy moment for the audience to connect with as well. Because they're like, oh, now we get who these people are for this moment because there's no ambiguity. They know, these in that scene, who we are.
Yeah, it did feel like, you know, this was a fictional story about this fictional grandfather, but it felt like we were all trying to reach something. We were all trying to speak to our past, or we're all trying to speak to our past selves, our ancestors, or something. And I felt like we could all do that in the audience. I feel like that was a real moment of everyone in the audience together, even if they didn't understand every word that was being said, because the letter was performed in Gaelic with no translation, which was a deliberate choice. I just wanted to give a big chunk of Gaelic on its own. And the reason for not translating it was, well, it's part of the story, it was part of understanding, it's part of understanding words, but for us it was trying to more get the audience to just understand the moment and the feeling. And I think that everyone understood the letter without understanding the words or understood the feeling of what we were trying to say.
Talk about good.